Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to season 5 of the Tuesday Telecast from the Joyful Path. I'm so excited to start this new season. I am bringing on a guest who has been through quite a journey herself and is on the journey to wellness from a place of autoimmune disease and not necessarily knowing what was going on in the past. So her name is Jennifer Uhlig, and she is from Grounded Wellness Coaching. And I'm going to go and see if she is in the house. Yeah, let's bring her in. All right, here we go. Thanks for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Lydia. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here too. You just are kind of the epitome of grounded energy and someone who's on the path and who's hasn't arrived, but knows that it's the journey and that we always can get better and better and more well. And so that's something that I just love. Anyway, let's turn it over to you. Tell the audience about what you are doing right now.
Well, right now, I think my thing is to let everybody know. So I am an autoimmune warrior, and I always try to refer to it in this positive sense. And sometimes it cannot be, but I currently have histamine intolerant hydrogen SIBO. So what that means is my body right now isn't always absorbing or digesting certain types of foods properly. And then on top of that, my body has decided that certain foods, they think it's allergic to it, but it's not technically allergic to it. So I'll still have, big reactions and things like that. So what I currently am managing are those symptoms and learning to listen to my body on a daily basis and eat in a way and live in a way that is going to be helping my body heal. And I think that's probably the biggest part of my story is learning how to identify what is helping your body heal versus continually making it work too hard, because then you just get more and more tired as it goes on.
Right. That's a story that is not the same as everybody else's, but yet it is, because what we do is we fight to conform, right? And when we when we're born, we're doing that, except in a little more balanced way. We're born and we say, oh, I want to be able to do those things that the other people are doing, and I want to learn how to do that. And later on we say, oh, we have to fit in. And it's partially, schooling and society and just the sort of tribe members that we are, but
Yeah.
we're still individuals and we have unique bodies and unique situations and unique minds, unique hearts. So we have so much to give when we're aligned, and yet we will try to conform and we'll say, boy, I've got a smile on my face, but I don't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of the hardest things when you go through any life shift, whether it's health or emotional or societal, is that we have to be okay not being okay. And learning how to communicate that with the people around us in a healthy way is such a big shift, because we're taught so much that we have to have this air of positivity and smiling and all of those things, when sometimes on the inside we're just like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel like smiling today, or I don't want to be super social today. And just feeling like we're being pulled into this bubble that's been built for us. And I think one of the things that I learned in the last 5 to 8 years is how to really burst that bubble and figure out where I'm going to fit in my own life.
Right. Where did where did you first either figure out or acknowledge that you didn't feel well, and it wasn't a passing gas pain. It wasn't a sniffle. It wasn't like you really didn't feel well. When did you acknowledge that?
So I think the first thing for me is that and I'll be like, I'm about to turn 44, just to give people some age reference. And I was around 32. And I had had symptoms from the time I was a teenager on for some of these things, but I didn't necessarily connect the dots until later. And we had just moved from Houston to Phoenix, a big life shift where you're then given the opportunity to make some other new choices.
Yeah.
And we came here, and was going through getting settled and things like that. And then over one weekend, I had put on 10 pounds. And it was very, very scary because I didn't know why, right? I hadn't done anything different. I hadn't been exposed to something. So my mind immediately went to, oh my God, I must be having an allergic reaction, because that's the only thing that I know from like schooling and things like that, where that could cause something like that. And, I'm just like, okay, I got to go deal with this. But before that, I was having symptoms of, I was still having some skin issues. I was gaining weight for no reason. And I'd always been very, very active and very, very food conscious at the time. But, I was gaining weight. I was getting more fatigued. My muscles were hurting. And then right around that time was the same time I noticed that my muscle mass had started to go through a process of called atrophy, where it was literally eating itself. And
Yeah.
I think that's when it became really, really prevalent. I'm like, okay, something between the swelling, the instant swelling over a weekend, and then seeing my muscle mass start to diminish. I'm like, something is really, really wrong.
Right. Yeah. There's that really is just a screaming warning to just about anyone is when your couch potatoes don't have their muscle mass just atrophy. It's a gradual diminishing. It's because they're not stimulating or
Yeah.
feeding, but it's gradual. And when it goes down more rapidly than that and you're still doing things, or there's no that's a big alarm. I've had that alarm before, but yeah, it's really crazy. So, and you think before you had the sudden weight gain, which is another huge alarm, do you think that your body was trying to tell you something? It finally just had to hit you over the head with a baseball bat in order to get you to listen? Or
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I mean, like, I can trace it back. Like, I kind of now put things into kind of two pockets,
yeah,
where I have the reproductive pocket of things that I should have been listening to.
hmm,
And then I have the immunity stuff that I had to listen to, because basically, like you said, I got hit over the head, and it's just like, you need to listen to me now. But even when I go back to when I was 13 years old and I started to menstruate, I can go through the whole story. Like, it was incredibly painful for me. And I would go through a lot of these symptoms that I noticed that my friends weren't going through, or other people weren't, experiencing. And I'd also have times where I would actually go through blackouts, where the pain would be so intense that my body would shut down. And I later learned through all of my training and research and stuff that I was having this extreme vagal nerve response.
yeah.
And for those that don't know, a vagal nerve is a big nerve that runs through our body from our brain to our gut. And so when I was having that much pain, it was basically shutting down in order to protect itself. And so I think I had some of those warning signs young, but even young, when I was going to the doctor, I was being so incredibly gaslit, going through it. And you're a kid and you don't know that that's what's happening, right? You're told to trust your doctors and listen to what they have to say. But even like through that process, I can see from 13 to about 30, I was having all of these other symptoms. I was seeing like my hair was starting to thin as I got older. And all of these things, like my skin still wasn't quite right. I was having problems eating things. I would have a loss of appetite. And then all of a sudden one day I'd be like able to eat like a whole pizza or something, because I was just famished. But I went through all this time, and I just remember the doctors saying, well, it's your hormones, or it's this, or it's that. And then getting to one gynecologist right before we moved. And I think this woman was the closest thing to I had at the time to somebody that was really trying to care
Yeah.
and being brutally honest with me, which I actually really appreciated at that point.
Yeah.
Here's the reality of it. The way that the system is set up, they're not going to let you treat this because they're going to keep telling you that, no, you're going to want this, or you're going to want to have it. Because at that point, I was like, why can't I just have a hysterectomy? It's like, why do I keep having to live this? They're like,
Right.
they're going to say you're too young or you're going to change your mind. And, you know, at that point, I had decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to be a mother, and that was my path. And at the same time, my body physically wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. Like it was just not something that was going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So she's like, it was so brutally honest. She's like, basically, you're going to have to bleed out on a table before this system is going to let you take care of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so she was trying to help me figure out how to manage it versus how to actually treat at that point.
No one was going to let you treat it. And a lot of people were probably trying to make it so that you would treat the symptoms. And did they do that willfully? Were they trying to keep you? Probably not. Probably it was just they had been trained by, and that this is all we can do, and stop complaining because we can't do anymore. And the thing is, we can. And I'm really hoping that it seems like there's a societal shift happening, not with everybody, but toward listening,
Yeah.
just listening,
Yes, actually,
big thing.
yeah, listening to hear instead of just, oh, here's your checklist of symptoms. What do I need to prescribe? And that's not the doctor's fault because that's a system that they've been trained in.
Right.
And I think we get into a point where we're like pointing fingers all the time, and you have to realize this is a system that's set up this way. And so if this is not the system that's working for us, we need to find another way to get to the solution that we're looking for. So of course, you know, it was
Right.
always do this pill, do this birth control pill, do this. And at no time during that 20 plus years was lifestyle ever brought into it. Inflammation was never mentioned, stress was never mentioned, and there is this massive paradigm shift and this counterculture that's being built over the last, I would say, like post-COVID. It
Yeah.
has really gained more traction of people that are questioning more what other options are out there. And I think that was timing for me was during that is to really be able to have that time to say, okay, what other options do I have? And that's where when we moved from Houston to Arizona, I, of course, had to find a new practitioner at that time. And I was in an area where there was this homeopathic doctor, and she was super highly recommended, and she was supposedly being the hormone doctor.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, great. I will go see her. Everybody goes see her. They raves about her, and they're for good reason,
Yeah.
very good reason. And so we started off with, okay, let's deal with this pocket of reproductive issues. And then as we started to work into it, then all of the other stuff started to come to light.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And I said, like, it's so important when you're advocating for yourself to find somebody, like, if anybody is going through something, you have to find the right team. And finding someone that's going to stick with you instead of dismiss you is massive. It really is the cornerstone to moving
Yeah.
your health forward.
Yeah. I think so. And you may not have anybody that's able to deal with this, or the system as it stands may not be able to connect you to the right person. So you have to actually really advocate for yourself. And that's so hard for some people to say, you thank you about this, but what about this other symptom? What about this other and eventually they'll say, well, would you like to see this other specialist? Yes, please, even if they're not the right specialist, because you get to the right person. It may be a
Yeah,
really long trek. Once you do, everything gets into alignment. And
it
that's
does.
because there are people somehow out there who just are so, it's not cutting edge. It's more like returning to our roots. And there's some doctors out there who are really rooted in care and in figuring out really what's going on in the overarching system that's you.
Yeah.
You mentioned gaslighting earlier, and women, um, women and men are treated as women and men, and that you're a young man, you have X. This is, don't complain about it. Just and again, unless you're bleeding out on a table, unless that young man has been in an accident and things are broken or bleeding, they're going to be treated as a young man. And as a young man, they're probably going to be blamed for whatever it is that happened, right? Because that's also our society. And then women are put in this place where we all are just, we're going to gain weight. We're going to be cranky and bitchy, and from time to time, and
Right.
we need to grin and bear it. And that all this stuff about, well, this is this time of month and I'm going to be a little more careful. No, just that you're a woman. You just have to go through and do this. And I'm sorry you bleed all over the place, but this is why it's not my fault that you're a woman. And there are just these set things that we kind of go through. And women's bodies, A, are not like men's, and B, they're not like each other's, though they're closer. They're closer to being like each other's. But when you don't talk about menstruating when you're 12 or 13 or 14 or whenever you start, you're and you just see things, you take in the things that you see, and you make them work for what story is going on in your brain. Like,
Yeah.
they have it better than me, I'm the weird one.
Right.
And then suddenly you when your doctors say no, this is just you're like, okay, I'm the weird one.
Yeah.
And it so needs to be taken care of, that we are, here's what your body should be doing. It's going to act like this, that, or the other thing. Does your body act like that? Well, no, it's a little more like this. Okay. And then go down a trail of questioning. And now that we're really listening, it's so it's so helpful, but it's got a long way to go.
It does. And I think going back, like in time, you go back and the medical system, like all the studies, all of things, were all made on men in a certain age group. It was usually like
Yeah,
18 to 30.
right.
So most of the stuff that we know and most of the techniques that we know were designed specifically for men in that age range. And just recently have any medical trials or anything like that included women.
Yeah,
And so the conversation, yes, it's starting to shift, but it's so far behind
yeah,
that we're missing like these things. Like it's nice to see finally that people are talking about perimenopause and menopause in the way that they are nowadays, because it's helping other women understand that this isn't something that needs to happen in secret. Like we can talk to our friends about our hot flashes and our mood shifts and how our body is changing, and what kind of terminology is healthy to talk about. Like I don't hear women talking about, oh, it's that time of life, I'm just going to get, larger, and realizing that that's not something that has to happen,
right,
and you don't have to suffer through this.
right. One thing I like to say to people, in a nutshell, like, we blame everything on old age. At whatever age, we're getting older, right? Okay, so yeah,
Mm.
we're getting older, but what getting older is being with all of your body parts and systems for longer. And so if you've not done anything with them, they're going to atrophy. That's just time. And if you've beaten the crap out of them, they're gonna respond too, especially if you haven't done it if you've abused them, like abusing a car or anything like that. It's gonna parts that you've really worn out are gonna wear. and the parts that you've been hard on are going to wear sooner, and the parts you haven't done anything with may get dry and not work anymore. And when you drive a car in just a normal way, what's normal? I can't believe I just said that, but if you drive a car in a way that's like uses all the systems pretty evenly and every day or 5 days a week, it tends to last longer. And it's very similar in a general way with our bodies, because we're going to, whatever has been suffering because of something is going to have been suffering for a long time once you've been with it for a long time. But if it's going along as a nice standard system, I mean, thank goodness not everything breaks down in our body at once. Some things we don't have to worry about and we just take for granted. But that idea that, well, it's just old age really feeds a in and out kind of medical system in which we don't deal with things until we hit the emergency room, and we don't deal with things unless it's by pharmaceuticals, where we have, in just the general way, women all have a monthly cycle. Like it is really rapidly shifting, and it's normal. It's perfectly normal, as well as that overarching system. And men have an overarching system with their hormones, and they don't have that monthly thing.
Mm-hmm.
So to not have women in a study is kind of mind-blowing, but we didn't. You can't say entirely that we didn't know, but we didn't know how important it was.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't prioritized. And again, just
No.
coming back to this idea about aging, I just think we've always like looked at aging in this negative connotation in our culture. And I think in general, like the way that I'm viewing aging is it's such a gift because we don't all get to do it.
Yeah.
And there's this point in your life, and I hope it happens earlier and earlier for anybody of any gender or orientation, where you stop caring about what other people are interpreting and you start really connecting with yourself and realizing that you have to listen to yourself. And I think that's when we truly start to heal any past issues that we have, and our body starts to really start to feel better. So when we stop being in a system that's not working for us and we find a system that does work for us, right, we can really find ourselves aging well and aging healthfully. And that may not,
Yeah.
include what we're doing right now. And I think it's really important that we all understand how to connect with ourselves in an authentic way. And I think that's where, like, I come back down to the idea you mentioned at the beginning is grounding. Is like, you can tell when somebody knows who they are by the way that they talk to you. And I think that's really important because I'm an empath and I'm going to read your energy. And I think you have that same tendency where you can feel what's happening across the table from you. And it's very easy nowadays to know when somebody's putting up a wall or someone's putting up a fake facade, because you're going to feel that you're like, oh, that doesn't quite feel right. Or, something about that is off. So I do feel that we're getting not just into the medical system, but into society. We're really starting to break down some of these barriers
Yeah.
about how we're talking about things. And I think that's where I'm excited for the future,
Yeah.
because I feel like this is the thing that's actually going to get a lot of people some healing as we move forward, because they're going to be able to really be in tune with themselves.
Yeah. Grounding is the thing that I mean, this is partially for the audience, but when you're grounded, it's not just being where you are, but being in yourself.
Mhm.
And there's a whole lot of things that we're part of. We are part of the whole earth, but we can ground right in the whole earth, and we can ground in the atmosphere, and the biggest thing that we can do for ourselves, it's just huge is to actually be present in our, you can focus right behind your eyes or right in your heart and really put your presence there. Notice being in your body. And it sounds foolish, right? It's like, of course I'm in my body. I've been, I've been stuck here for, I am my body, I am my brain. But when people actually get to the point where whatever they believe, they actually go inside, suddenly it sounds scary to do it, but suddenly the pains aren't as bad. They're telling you something, and you can actually figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think what we lost track with is really listening to our body and what it's trying to communicate with us. Because
Yeah.
our bodies are amazing, and I don't think we'll ever fully understand all of the intricacies
Mm-hmm.
how they work. Definitely not within my lifetime. And
Yeah.
that's just what we're dealing with. But our bodies are going to tell us. And I think during my journey of discovery and healing is like really understanding to listen instead of pushing them down and saying, okay, I'll deal with you later. I'll deal with you later. I'll deal with you later. And
Yeah.
later starts to build up into the point where you can't get through it because now it's right there and it's this giant thing in front of you that you have to deal with now or you're not going to be able to move forward. And
Yeah.
so, dealing with a chronic illness and knowing that I went from one version of what I thought my life was going to be. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, this is not what my reality is going to be. And having to make that shift, I think is really, for me, the moment where like, okay, what is it that I'm going to be now? What is it that I have been burying or hiding while I was growing and developing? When
Yeah.
I need to acknowledge who I am. And I think when I was growing up, like I was always felt like an outsider. And I think the reason I felt like an outsider is because I wasn't truly expressing who I was on the inside. And I always knew that, like I would be called a tree hugger or I would be called like all of these things because that's my nature. My nature is to envelop and heal and be a guide. And that's, now where I realize, okay, this is who I am. And I think that's why originally my first career was teaching and education,
Yeah.
is because I wanted to be that person that says, okay, this is what's going on here. Now let's figure out, how do we learn this? How do we do this? And I'm taking that part of my personality and owning it more.
Yeah.
And then that's where I'm like, okay, well, now like my life is not what it was. Like I have to wake up every morning. And I think people that are listening to this that have a diagnosed or an undiagnosed chronic illness will feel me on this. I don't know what my day is going to look like. It could be scheduled out, but I don't know what my body is going to feel like. I don't know what my brain is going to feel like. Like I'm just going to have to roll with it every day. Like some days, this Saturday, where it's spring here, and so I'm in the middle of like spring cleaning, and I'm kind of taking it bits by bit, so I don't overdo it. But I was like doing all my linens on Saturday, and I felt great. I had all of the energy in the world. I'm like, I can do this. I can get through this. And then
Yeah.
Sunday comes, and I'm like, okay, I can do some things today, but I know I'm going to need to rest. And I think it's just understanding that every day gets a little bit different, and to be okay with that. And the other thing, my husband thinks it's hilarious, and I am Canadian, so people understand this is also a cultural thing, but I say sorry a lot.
Mm.
And I say sorry for things that I didn't have anything to do with. But
Mm.
it's because you were trained to be like apologetic all the time and be small, or you feel like a burden sometimes when you are doing stuff and you're always apologizing for being. And
Yeah.
it's not for something you did, but it's just for being there. And it's something that I personally am working on and be like, oh, I will catch myself and I'll be like trying to stop apologizing because you don't need to apologize for being present, right? We have to learn that this is, who you are and that I'm not a burden. This is just what I am. And some days I'm going to have to, introvert into my cave to recharge. And some days I'll be ready to go out and conquer the world. But, just really getting connected with who we are on the inside is something that I think a lot of people are starting to really grasp in a way that's more acceptable in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much there. When we say sorry, there's a way in which we're covering ourselves. There's also a way in which we're caring for others. I didn't do that for you. I'm sorry. I didn't follow through. I'm sorry. But we're not, it's not our fault. And we aren't, you're right. We aren't a burden. We can care for others by caring for ourselves first. It's a really hard lesson, and it's like, okay, well, this is just how it's going to be, but it actually eases into a flow that's more natural. Like
Mhm.
this very cliche, put on your oxygen mask before you put on others. That's a a metaphor for, yeah, we really do need to take care of ourselves first. And we don't have to be sorry about the way that we do it. We have to make sure that everybody is the is in sync with us by us doing our part first, not just, sitting back and waiting for what being in sync is, because we do need to care for ourselves. It's just so important. So you're
Yeah.
caring for other people, and this is the place where you are now in life, and it has to do with grounding, and it has to do with nutrition, like the fuel that we put in ourselves. And there's so much more. There's so much more to what you do. So what are you doing right now with individuals that come to you with either chronic illness or just feeling like it doesn't work, my body doesn't work, and I don't know what to do?
Yeah. I'm very lucky that I realized that this was where I wanted to be in the world. And this is what I feel like some people talk about calling, but I think I always felt during my career that I wasn't quite doing the right thing. I wasn't quite doing the right thing. And then I'm like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be here to help people get through this. So now with my experience and what I've gone through and the knowledge that I've gained within the system and outside of the system, I really am here to help people navigate what that means in their own lives. And that may be that, someone comes to me either diagnosed or undiagnosed, like you mentioned, with a chronic illness, and now they're in the question mark phase of what do I do now? And they'll often go to a doctor, or it'll be a multi-year process. As you know personally, is that it can be a multi-year process. And we always assume that it should be something that we just get a diagnosis, take a pill, and move on. And it's much more complex than that, right? There's so much more nuance. And understanding that one of the things that we can do first for ourselves, regardless of anything else, is identify what's happening with what we're putting in our body,
Mm-hmm.
and then identifying what's happening in our environment, and then what's happening to us emotionally, and knowing that it's not just one or the other, and that they all work together. And I guess the way that I can break it down is that I usually start with people understanding that the first thing you can do, and I feel that the best thing that they can do for themselves, is to simplify instead of always try this, try that, and add.
Right.
Is the best thing we can do for ourselves is actually start to pull things out from our environments, from our nutrition, from other things that aren't working for us, and give our nervous system a chance to take a big deep breath, because we're constantly on the go, 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 go. So when I'm talking with people and we're helping, the first thing we want to do, I think the easiest thing for people to understand is the food part of it,
Yeah.
because you gotta take small steps, and it's not a throw everything at them at the beginning. You have to slowly work things in. So, understanding what foods are inflammatory to you, what
Mm-hmm.
foods are your body telling you that it likes, and what it doesn't like, because there's no one way that this works. And I think like I have hydrogen SIBO, but the next person could have hydrogen SIBO and they might react differently to foods than I react because of what's going on in our digestive system. So I really work with people to help like really dial that in a way that's more gentle than what's happening in the other lives, right? It's not a, I'm going to change everything right away. We slowly work into these changes so that you feel that you can actually do this long term. Like it didn't take me, like I didn't go through one elimination protocol and then I was healed, right? It took me many years of figuring out what does my body like, what does my body not like, what foods is it reacting to, what is it not, and really understanding that this isn't a diet. And I think that's the biggest thing. People are like, oh, I'm going to go on this and it's going to fix everything. And then they go right back to what they were doing before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Right.
lifestyle, right?
Yeah, and it's even, I think it's even past lifestyle. It's just self-respect. It's like you're eating
Mm.
with self-respect. You're listening to your body. Like I know some days I might be able to go eat one thing, and then I know that, okay, well, I've had this one thing. I probably shouldn't eat it again for another week or maybe another month because of the way my body reacts, but knowing that it still can be had. So we
Yeah.
get into like trying to get out of this all or nothing mentality is part
Hmm.
of the process too. And I think when people go to their doctors and they're still, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. I don't understand why I'm having, extreme fatigue or my muscles hurt all the time, or, I'm having this bloating issue or I can't eat this. And a lot of times we'll get people that are just having unexplained swelling. There's people that were like, my feet are swollen. My feet are always swollen. And the doctor's just like ice and compression. I'm like, there's probably something else going on there. So let's
If
figure it
my
out.
feet are always swollen, it doesn't mean that they were just injured, just now.
Right. So the first thing, like when I'm working with people, the first thing is to figure out what is it that's really happening, and taking the time to listen is always my top priority, because I want to hear what they're telling me, not what I'm thinking in the background I can do to fix it, which is what a lot of people do all the time is how do I fix it? How do I fix it? I want to hear what they're telling me and then really make sure that I repeat it back to them so that I am fully understanding. And starting and working our way through what the healing process works through. And during that, if I hear something that I think actually, they could get some medical attention for, I'm going to say, okay, these are the things that I think you should go talk to your doctor about, or these are the tests that I think you should run, because what you're telling me is leaning into this. And I think
Mm.
we could actually find out if this is what's happening and then figure out what's the best thing to do next.
Yeah.
So one of the examples I can give is a lot of people are diagnosed or put on thyroid medicine.
Hmm.
And everyone's assuming, oh, we get this TSH test, and we go from that based on a number, whether we get put on medication or not. And the truth is, not everyone that has an abnormal TSH number actually has a thyroid problem, right? That is usually a symptom of something else that's going on in the body. There are definitely people that need to be put on a thyroid medicine because their thyroid has stopped producing the hormones that it needs. But a lot of people, it's something else that's going on inside their body that we could tackle that could potentially avoid being put on medication. And I think the most important thing is knowing that we have that control and we can take care of that ourselves without having to come out of pocket all the time to go to the doctor.
Yeah. I, there's something that you remind me of, and that is Marie Forleo. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's a big coach and a beautiful person talking about a lot of these things. And she says, simplify to amplify. And so I brought that came to mind, and I'm thinking about how we simplify when it seems so overwhelming that, well, yeah, I can eliminate this, that, and the other thing, but what if it's not that? And then I've got to go back and eliminate this, and then I've got to, and people will throw up their hands because I think it's something that a lot of people think of. Oh, I should just remove this thing. Oh, well, it didn't do it. oh, I should remove that thing. Well, it did something, but it didn't do everything. So what is your protocol for helping someone to go within and actually introspect as well as look at their lives from the outside and say, okay, what am I doing every single day, and what do I eliminate? How do you go about that with a person who's like, I can't handle it?
right? If you like, it really, I'll get people sometimes where they're just hitting this wall. They're like, I don't understand. I don't know what to do next. Um, you really have to figure out where that person is in their life and
Mhm.
kind of go from there. I think sometimes we forget sometimes that this can be emotional.
Yeah.
We tend to take the emotional part of it out and throw it over to the side.
Yeah.
Um, I think sometimes when people are really hitting that wall, the first thing is to understand, okay, where do we need to maybe heal emotionally? And that can be really hard for some people to grasp. Is that,
Mhm.
oh, I'm just coming to this person, like they'll say, I'm coming to this person to talk about nutrition and health factors. So they think it's just going to be food and exercise. But a lot of what we really need to dive into is, okay, what else is going on with you mentally? What's going on with you emotionally? Like you might have some, I don't use the word trauma because I don't do a lot of trauma informed practice, but you might have something going on in your life right now that's actually hindering your health. Like you could have this massive stressor in your family that could be actually your instigator in what's happening in your health. And just having to deal with that instead of, pushing it to the side or procrastinating about would actually be what your healing process is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody has stress at some point in their lives. There's the big T traumas and the small T traumas, and the what we sometimes, if we have had a trauma in our life that is stuck with us, we often will think we've gotten past that, but we will have physical symptoms of that, and that we may be very used to and not notice. And
Right.
then we get those small T traumas, the stress in the family, the stress with jobs, the car troubles, whatever it is, and they'll give us more symptoms than we realize, and we think that we need to, just like our health, grin and bear it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount that, sure, I mean, don't dwell in the pain of it, don't, but acknowledge it, be there with it. And right now I am really sad. Right now I am really in pain, or I'm really stressed, and be with it. And then
Yeah.
also be with the fact that when we're present, we can see that okay, that's what it feels like, and the feeling is dissipating, or the feeling is staying with me, and I can also be in myself and observe this beautiful thing that I think is really pretty, or the love of my cat, or my dog, or the singing of the birds, whatever it is that you really like, or a song that you really like on the radio, and you can realize that, yeah, I'm feeling a little better now.
Yeah.
But you can't, if it's that simple, which it kind of is, right? I mean, like, actually feel it, and also let it go. If it's that simple, why don't we do it? Because
Great. It's so hard. And I think we were describing before, we've got this new term that people are using called the glimmer.
yeah.
Right? You got to find your glimmers. I was going to say, like, I'm going to talk about this in my upcoming newsletter, but we were coming home Saturday and I was just going to the mailbox to pick up something. And there was this Amazon delivery guy that had stopped to drop off whatever he was stopping up. And we have this little park that's by our mailbox. And he took a break to swing on the swing set. And so we're sitting there and he's swinging and I'm just like, I was so impressed, and it made me happy to know that he was happy. Like he was taking that moment for himself on the swing set. So it's finding those glimmers, finding what you like. I think a lot of times people don't really know what they connect to anymore.
Right.
And understanding that there's so many things we can do that can help our bodies feel better. And one thing that I love working with people on is to really understand how vibrations work.
Yeah.
And some people need to, bounce around. They need to sing, they need to hum, they need to dance, they need to feel those things, because it actually will help take some of that anxiety and pain away. Just letting them be connected with that part of their body. And we're getting to a point where people are starting to understand these things and really like dive into them. But understanding like and connecting are two different things, because we can be in our cerebral and understand what we're supposed to do. Like same thing with everything. We can know what we're supposed to do and what people are telling us. And then there's the actual implementation of it. And that's where it becomes hard. And that's where somebody like myself would come in and help you understand how to do that within your life and your lifestyle.
Right. What I see and feel is that what you do is to help people to be aligned, and that alignment comes from being in your vibration, vibrating at the where everything is aligned, is like lined up, is like in a way that you work, that you flow. And when you can be in that space, it doesn't mean you don't have things that hit you from time to time, or things that are inherent in your body that have trouble with the environment that you're in, or things that, but it means that your body is able to heal more easily, instead of fighting itself, instead of all the parts of it just pulling or fighting. It's a part of us that it's like the most natural way for us to be and be healthy, is to just get into alignment. And there's very little out there that shows us how to do that. But even once you get there, you're not hampered by by the idea of, oh, that swing set looks really fun. I mean, you can
Right.
just do it, and it's actually part of you being in alignment, and you being healthy, and you being in flow, and you having, which makes your friendships be better, which it makes your food taste better. I mean, everything.
Yeah. I mean, like how many of us would have looked at that swing set and be like, oh, I can't do that. That's for a kid.
Right.
Right. Where when we were a kid, it was like one of the favorite things that you would go do is the swing, in that moment where you're swinging up and you have that weightlessness moment, like that's what we lived for. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
finding that moment to let yourself be who you are, like would enjoy what you enjoy without any stigma attached to it.
That's
And
right.
that's when we really find ourselves. I mean, for me, like even like knowing that you can find something that you like, and you might still be searching for something else that's going to make you really happy.
Yeah.
But realize that, that's okay. You don't have to be at the end game all the time and right now.
Right. Right. And you won't be, because if you were at the end game all the time, it wouldn't be that interesting, would it? I mean, the part of life is the ups and downs, and where we started in this talk is about the journey.
Mhm.
All these ups and downs that we have actually make it interesting. We wouldn't appreciate the ups if we didn't have some journey to get there. So where do you see your life heading in the coming, help me, not the long term, but like the coming year or two? What do you have for plans, or what do you just see?
Personally, on the personal side of things, I just want to continue to connect well with my circle.
Mm,
And I think, understanding that means it doesn't mean you have to be going out and doing stuff all the time, but just having that really good connection with your circle, because I feel that we've we've lost a good part of that. And I know that when you are dealing with something, a lot of times we tend to disconnect, and the connection is what actually helps. So that's definitely something that I see myself working on. I'm still working on finding some new hobbies, things that involve other people. Like most of my hobbies right now are what we're kind of calling grandma hobbies. I like to cook. I like to work in my garden and things like that. But really, I feel like part of my next couple of years is to get into a place where I'm connecting with people on a deeper level. And I don't like to come in, and I like things to be really deep right away. And so I'm not great on small talk, and that's something that, in general doesn't work for me, but I see myself working with that. And then on the side of my practice, my mission is really to help people as much as possible. So it's not I need to make X number of dollars, or I need to do this. Is I want to be in front of the people that need me to be in front of them and need some support to get through their journey, because it's so much, to me, it's so much more than just coming in for a session and leaving and then knowing that I'm by myself the rest of the time. Like, that's not how my practice works. My practice is, if you sign up for a session, you sign up for a program, know that you still have access to me during that time if you need to email or you need to text. And I'd rather have you reach out to me than feel like you're confused or you're going down a hole. And if you're having a crappy day and you just need someone to say some stuff to, that's not going to come from a place of judgment, or in your circle where you feel like you might be breaking a relationship, that's kind of where I feel like my practice comes in. Because the healing journey from anyone that's dealing with a health issue or an emotional issue, it's very personal. And sometimes we don't want to feel like we're putting that onto our spouse or our partner or
Mhm.
onto our family. We need that third party that's coming from a really objective side of things to help us kind of work through those things. So I see my practice being more about that. And that's what I'm trying to really explain to people. Like, it's not just come to me, we're going to talk about nutrition, and that's all we're going to talk about. Or you come to me and you're like, okay, I want to deal with, I have 10 pounds to lose, or I have high blood pressure, or I have high, glucose levels or things like that. I'm like, oh yeah, obviously we're going to tackle that, but we're going to figure out what else is going on that is impacting this. So really, that's kind of where I see myself. I'd also love to see myself in the next couple years expanding some programming to some people with breast implant illness, which is something that I've experienced, that I'm working on partnering hopefully with a functional health doctor to work with me on a program where we can do the proper testing and help people really navigate what that looks like. So we got some things that I'm working towards.
Wow. Yeah. So whatever you're doing, you're creating a container for people, not just we are going to do this together, but creating a container for them to explore all their options in what they're feeling. And the and your plans to go into more different health oriented things having to do with breast implants. This is um that space of having parts added to us that are supposed to help that end up causing other harm. I hedge to use the word harm because it's more like just a malalignment. It's that, and that malalignment ends up harming us, but it's not like the thing that was meant to help us actually harmed us. It's that it wasn't right for us.
Right.
And those, and coming to those places also takes a container, because it isn't a one and done answer. But that container feels good. It's challenging, it's contentment, it's nurturing, it's receiving. And there's so much in that container that you provide that, again, brings us to that alignment of and the space that we're going to heal in. So I just love that. Do you ever work with men, or do you only work with women?
I do work with men, actually. Interesting enough, I think people, because of what I do and more women being diagnosed with autoimmune and chronic illness, obviously I'm going to have a higher percentage. But I will say part of my practice is 30% men.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, people are confused about that sometimes. I'm like, you've got to understand, you got to be healthy in your masculine and your feminine energies, and you've got to understand that, people come from different places. And I've had good luck with men. It's definitely a different approach depending on the personality and what they're dealing with. But yeah, I've had some really good luck with men. And especially I find that working with men of a certain generation has been really rewarding,
Yeah.
and realizing that they're also kind of trying to come out of this programming that they've been fed growing up and trying to heal from that. And I think that's been educational for them and educational for me, obviously coming from a perspective that I didn't grow up with.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really heartening. There's a lot of people, there's no problem or shame it, but who choose to work just with women or just with men, but having because of the type of space that you create for people to work together, having that available to men. Because I think sometimes, even though we were talking about feel like we're kind of pushed under and pushed aside and gaslighted in the medical industry, we still will tend to once we figure it out, support one another. And that can be really hard. That's something that's just coming up now for men supporting one another and men getting support. It's mostly like that they are supposed to just power through the burden.
Exactly.
And so this is something that, I just want to highlight to everyone that this is such an important thing, is people who have been there, who understand and will listen and create this container with you so that you can explore and actually be yourself. And it's so important. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's something that as we enter the summertime also, and this is, maybe a little woo-woo to some people, but there are real differences that we have, that all of us have when we enter different seasons, and the different seasons make our bodies react differently. And we may just say, well, it's just because I'm hot, or yeah, but there's more going on. We treat ourselves differently. The amount of sun we have access to changes our actual chemical makeup. So there's, while everybody's always hopping on health things at the beginning of the year, this right now is an amazing time to start your health journey. I,
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 yeah, I love this time of year, and I think some people always they mistake this time of year with getting ready to be seen in a bathing suit,
yeah,
right? We get this whole thing, and I'm like, the truth is, if you have a bathing suit, you have a body, you're already ready. You're good to go.
that's right. You want to swim, you swim. It's
Yeah.
you were not put here as something to dangle in front of people, not, nor were you that needs approval. You don't need
Yeah,
approval.
you
Just do it.
don't. But it's a beautiful time of year too to start really diving into your health, because this is also the season for a lot of people that live in places that have four seasons versus where I live, where we basically have two, hot and less hot.
Right.
We're just,
Yep.
you get all these, this is a great time to explore food because everything's growing now, it's in bloom, you get to be outside. It's a great time to build a new habit
Yeah.
because you have access to so much more than you may have during the winter and snow, where we have a tendency to want to be more cozy. So I really love this time to start a journey, because you have all of these things available to you, and you feel like this new rebirth kind of feeling when the spring and the summer comes, and that energy starts to build, and you can have a tendency to be more intuitively connected with yourself this time of year. So
Hmm.
it's for me, it's one of those prime times to really start okay, what do I want to do? Like evaluate what's important to you. What's the next step in your own journey? And
Yeah,
then who do I want to surround myself with to help accomplish that?
I agree. And who you want to surround yourself with. Surround yourself with people who have an abundant presence like that, and a calm presence, and are excited about the things that you want to be excited about. Surround
Mhm.
yourself with people who are aligned to who you are. So if people want to work with you, how are they going to get in touch with you? And do you take on clients at any time, or is there a specific time that they need to onboard with you?
No, so the best way to reach to me is all of my calling cards are all grounded wellness coaching. So whether that be on social or my website landing page for people, it's all the same. So grounded wellness coaching, Gmail, media, meta, social, all of those things. So it's a little bit easier to find me that way.
Yeah.
But if people are actually looking to book with me, I don't have specific times of the year where I only open up my registration. So I
Good.
don't do it like a group coaching. I do it when people are ready. And the most important thing is I want to be available when you're ready. So someone can go to my website and they can book a free call with me for us just to get to know each other and make sure that we're a good fit. Make sure I understand what their goals are first, and then I know that I'm the right person to help them with there has been situations where people have met with me and I've had to tell them that I think they need to meet with a specialist first, or they need to go a different direction because I may not be the right fit for them.
Sure.
And so I always say, like, come have 30 minutes with me first. Let's see if this is right. And then we'll go into the next steps and see what I'm hearing from them, what they're feeling like they need to work on. I do provide people with other options if they're not ready to jump into a full program with me, and just say, okay, well, you can do a one-off with me. I also have a free starter 7-day sugar challenge so you can experience, the learning parts of coaching and kind of walk through what a bigger program would be. And so that's just a self, it delivers to their email every day, and they can kind of have a mini lesson and understand what that would feel like.
Mm.
And then somebody that maybe doesn't want to do the face-to-face, I have access to a bunch of different resources that they can purchase for a lower cost if they're just looking to give themselves a 6-week challenge where they're just dealing with staying accountable to their goals.
Mm.
Or I have several meal plans that are generalized meal plans for a certain type of goal. So I'll have some that's for paleo, or have one for an anti-inflammatory. And so that gives them a whole block out for a month of their meals,
Yeah.
shopping, like grocery list, meal prep things, all of those connections, so they can start the process feeling like they're fully in control. And then
Hmm.
if they feel like they're ready to have that really one-on-one and dig into it a little bit more with that extra support, then they can come to me after that. So there's several ways for people to get started, and in ways that they can start that's comfortable to them as they move forward.
Amazing. So just find you on the socials, and in case you're not catching that, it's down in the show notes where you can catch Jennifer on all, and Grounded Wellness Coaching on all the different socials, and at Gmail.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on here. As I bring this to a close, I want to know if there's anything that you have as uh, a quick and dirty tip to to get people started on their wellness journey.
Ooh, to narrow it down to one would be really, really difficult.
Yeah, it's a mean question.
I know, like when people tell me, like, what is the best tips can I give you, is drink your water and make sure you sleep. It's always like the main go-to is drink your
Yeah.
water, make sure you sleep. But I think one of the things based on our conversation today, I was just like, really, like, listen to yourself. And when you listen to yourself, you're going to win no matter what's happening.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. So I appreciate you being on here, and I encourage everybody who has an autoimmune disease or does not and just says, what the heck is going on with me, to give Jennifer a visit. Thank you so much for telling us about your story and for being on here on the Joyful Path. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much, Lydia. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you would like to work with Jennifer, her stuff is down in the show notes. You can go and see what kind of programs she has, and also the ways that she has resources for you to just start tuning into yourself, aligning, grounding, healing, getting into the right vibration. So this is so important. If you are feeling anything that you are just used to, and it has hit you over the head recently and said you need to pay attention, go see Jennifer. I appreciate you. And if you liked this, please hit like. And if you haven't done it yet, please ever so gently push the subscribe button. And I will see you next week here on the Joyful Path. Ciao.